the water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secret.
Dee, welcome to Founder Secrets.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. So today's going to be kind of a special episode. We're going to talk about, I think that when some people hear that we're talking about process today, they might cringe or roll their eyes or something. But Flavia and I both, and all of us, I think our experience is that when you have great process, it allows you to scale a business. And when you have poor process, it destroys a business. So this is a very, very important topic. And before we jump into that, we'll start with the icebreaker like we always do. And so the icebreaker for today is, what strategies do you use to maintain a work-life balance? How have these evolved as your business has grown? So I can go first. Biking has become a big part of my, Flavia and I have done many bike rides in New York. We just did one a couple of days ago. But when I came out here to California, the bike rides became much longer. And I've learned that I can tell a difference in my, it provides this like nice separation, nice decompression. Since I don't have a commute to work, that has helped me a lot with this idea of I bike most of the time alone. Sometimes my wife comes, but it's a nice alone time that I use to kind of reset. And that's me. What about you, Flavia?
Yeah, I think I started even before COVID with no meeting days, right? So having like a day, like Friday or a Monday with no meetings, and stacking the internal meetings all in one day. Like we had Wednesday used to be our meeting days, and each team, and it was like one after the other, so it was all stacked. Now it's more Tuesday that's for the meeting days. So I think it's just so important to not have meetings. And when it used to be that it would be virtual instead of in person, now it seems like the cost of virtual meetings is, people feel like it's just zero. So then they'll just, everybody be like, oh, let's just jump on a quick call or meeting. And it's really healthy for me to not do those and to push back and make it an email or stack them all at a certain time of day. So I try to stack them all at like 2 p.m. Like I find that I'm not super productive between 1 and 4 p.m. Honestly, I don't think anybody is. I think it's like after lunch, people are just like, processing their food and just tired and maybe get like a little coffee to re-energize, but they're just not it's not when I get the most highly difficult work done. So instead, maybe since I'm already not at peak capacity, peak mental performance, I could take a meeting and I feel like it's a better time than trying to do it at 9 a.m., which then if that meeting goes and saps all my energy, then depleted the rest of the day. So there's a sum for me. Adi, what about you?
Well, what I find successful is actually booking short trips on the week for weekends, like ahead of time. And that forces me to go. And even if I take my laptop with me, I make a commitment, my husband and I make a commitment to each other that we're going to spend time together and not work during those times. When you're at home, it's a little bit harder, but let's say, for instance, if we go for a weekend in San Diego or a weekend in Utah, even a weekend in Central Oregon, we live in Oregon, it's great, especially to places where you don't have internet. Like when you go to some places in Central Oregon, there is no internet there. You have to actually make an effort to go to the store or to somewhere else to actually get the internet. I mean, I guess in the hotel there is, but when you go out, it's not easy. So doing that forces me to actually get away, which I'm looking forward to it, but it's a great way of doing it.
Love that. That's a good one. I need to plan a trip every weekend.
But I like the biking too. And the no meetings, which I tried as well. So I like both of your ideas and I did try that. I'm still doing it. The no meeting, the whole kind of like, it depends on what stage the business is at. If I'm hiring, if I'm doing this or doing that, then that day, my Friday gets full with other things. But the biking every day, absolutely.
It's special. All right, so kind of give us the high level of how you arrived at Business Success Consulting Group, and maybe a little bit about what makes you passionate about process and about something that a lot of entrepreneurs, mentioned this, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs skip over, or they think that it's something they can do much later in the business. Yeah. How'd you kind of arrive here?
Yeah. So, my background is industrial engineering. I mean, that's what I studied. The reason why I went to study industrial engineering is that it basically had to do with combining science, which I was very good at, and understanding people and working with people, which I love. I mean, I love interacting with people. That's what really energizes me, and understanding people, what makes them tick and why do they work the way they work and how can I make their lives better. So that's why I wanted to be an industrial engineer. Didn't really know much about it. And then I got a job and started working with at a consulting company that worked with big corporations. And then my career evolved from there. I always had the entrepreneurial spirit. So I had some side businesses, and at some point, I reach a point where I go like, you know what, it's now or never when I'm going to start my own business. And that's what I did. And I started as in general consulting, because that's what I was good at. I was good at working with businesses to make them grow, to make them thrive. But I would tell my clients week after week, you need processes in order for you to make the business more sellable, in order for you to have consistency, to train employees to do better. And they will agree, but they will come the next week and they didn't do anything, and they wouldn't do anything and wouldn't do anything. So then one day I asked them, hey, what if I document the processes for you? And they go, really? And I go like, yeah. And they go, oh, and yes. So that's how I started. I found a niche, basically. I realized that that's something that entrepreneurs really need in order to be successful. I realized that this is something that I can do in order to differentiate myself from other consultants, because that service is not being provided. I realized that it's easier to give advice and tell somebody how to grow their business, but they need somebody to actually implement. And that is, when I realized that, that's when my business really started growing. And then I grew the team, and now we have a team of 15 and growing, and referrals, people, it's like, it's really grew throughout the years because of that niche and the need for that.
Yeah. So why do entrepreneurs need process? Why, because we all hear it, coaches, you read books, and how would you define process? When you say process, what does that mean? And why is it so important for, the young and young, I just mean young in their entrepreneur journey, somebody early on and maybe a little later in their journey as well?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the questions one by one. So the way I define process is basically a series of steps in order to get to the same result every single time. So it's basically like a system, right? Now, we all have processes. When we wake up in the morning, there is a process probably of how you make coffee. You might not have it documented, but you repeat it over and over again. So we do have those processes. Sometimes they're not optimized. And sometimes if you don't know what they are, it's hard to optimize. So one of the reasons why it's good to have processes documented. So it's not the question why you need processes, because you already have processes. The question is, why do you need to define them, document them, and look into them, is because you probably are doing some things. But if you actually, it's in your head. If it was actually written, you would be able to then see what's going on and how to optimize it. Another reason is hiring, delegating. If you want to delegate to somebody, if you're going to hire your first employee, what are you going to tell them to do? My clients report results like decreasing the onboarding time by 75% because they have written processes that somebody can actually read and repeat. You might be teaching the new employee, talking to them or training them on the job, but you have to repeat it, and they have to be able to read it in order to actually understand it, and they have to refer to it over and over. Maybe you want to sell the business someday. I know that's not at the beginning, that's more towards the end of the project process, the journey, but you still want to prepare for it, right? Maybe you are founding the business now, starting the business now, and have the idea to sell it in 5 years. Well, you better define how you're doing things. Risk mitigation. Are your customers getting the same results from every representative that you have, from every employee, every estimator, every salesperson, whomever is treating them? Are you getting consistent results? If you're not, it's because they're not following the same process. So this is another reason why to have the processes. Another reason is, can you get out of the business? Right now, think about it. Can you actually take a vacation? If you take a vacation right now, what will happen to your business? So this is a question to our listeners. If they go like, there is no way, well, you are a slave to your business. You just got yourself a really high paying job, or maybe you don't even get paid as high as you got in your other job. And that's a problem. So you need your processes documented, so then you can find somebody and the business will operate independent of you. If you find yourself having employees coming to you with questions over and over and over again because they don't know how to do different things, you didn't empower them to make the decisions because you didn't tell them how, or you didn't define the process. If there is a process, they know what to expect, what is allowed to do. And again, a process is not going to describe everything because that's why you are hiring good people, so they will have the freedom to do things. But you do have to have them documented so they know what are the boundaries and what they need to do. And just to find the final answer to that, we actually did a survey. We surveyed about, I think, 100 entrepreneurs. And we asked them, what do they like most about being a business owner? Do you know what the number one question was?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Exactly. That was the word.
That's what everybody says.
Freedom. It's just freedom. But, okay, so let me ask you the following question, the clarifying question. Okay, so when you say freedom, it's freedom for what? Freedom from, freedom to? What kind of freedom?
Flavio, what kind of freedom?
Freedom.
So when you said freedom, what came to mind? Like when you said, yeah, I want freedom.
Freedom from the man.
Okay.
Well, it just came to mind all the entrepreneurs I've met that have said that. So I didn't really, you asked what everybody else said. You didn't ask what we think.
Flavio doesn't want freedom.
I know, but then if you start digging into it, like, okay, what is freedom, right? Because if you really look at it, freedom is a great word that we want to strive towards. But it's also can be pretty abstract and pretty generic. Like when you actually go, okay, what does it mean to you, freedom as a business owner? If you really look at it, right?
Right.
So it's when we ask further questions, it means freedom to step away from the business and do what they want to do, spend time with the family, have that work-life balance, or do other things. Freedom to control your own destiny, because sometimes you feel things are out of control. Freedom to create. The word create came up a lot as well, because as entrepreneurs, you want to create, right? We are the visionaries. We are, even if you are very good at operating the business, but still you want to create. That's where we gain our the creativities gain, what would you say? Like, the enjoyment of being an entrepreneur, right? That's the reward. So you wanted freedom to be able to create, either create new businesses, either create on the business itself, look at other sources of income, more avenues. So all of that is part of it. So that is the overall why. Why do you want to have systems and processes so you can actually scale the business, get yourself out of the business, whether to sell it or actually not have to, the business is not depending on you. So you can actually achieve the freedom of creativity, control over your schedule, control over your destiny, etc.
I'm always curious, what tools do you use to document these processes? Like, what do you recommend in terms of tools?
So, we use tools. We use process documentation softwares, and we have several that we recommend and we like. We definitely need a platform like that and not just random Word documents.
What are those tools? Can you share what those 4 or 5 are?
I use Suite Process, Whale, use Whale.io, Trainual, Playbook Builder. Those are the main ones that we use. Now, if our clients have already some kind of a system, we use that one. We don't necessarily force or recommend one or the other, but those are the ones the 4 that I usually, if people don't have it, I recommend. The key, what I find for success in order to document, is the ability to extract knowledge, and that's human. That's not AI. We have consultants that are very well trained in asking the right questions and clarifying questions, just like we did with the freedom. Because somebody can say, oh yeah, we do it X, Y, Z. Okay, but why? You have to really ask the questions until you really get to the source of it. Because otherwise, what will happen is you're going to lose that process because you don't really understand the why behind it. So it's asking good questions, understanding why the process is being done the way it's being done. Because if we don't do that, I'll give you an example, silly example. I'm holding a red pen here. And part of the process is that when you come in the morning to work, you put the red pen on the left side of the desk. So that's how I'm documenting it. If I don't explain the rationale or why behind it, somebody can say, well, I don't want to put the red pen on the left side of the desk, I'm going to put it on the right side. Or I'm not going to put the red pen at all. But maybe putting the red pen on the left side of the desk has some significance to somebody, that's because of that your business is so successful for the last 30 years. So we are very careful at not changing things that don't need to be changed. Always document existing state so we see what's workable and what's not. And also asking the right questions to extract the information and have the right balance of not too many details when you're documenting and enough detail to really understand things and not lose the power of the document or the process.
Yeah, we spent in our company a lot of time deciding what tool to use, and that became a huge back and forth. And we used Zendesk and Intercom and something that was already tied into customer support, because part of what we were trying to document a lot was processes that our customer support could use for helping customers. So there was kind of a dual benefit in that it could create a knowledge base a customer could use, as well as our own employees could use to help customers. But man, I got to say, it's just like those things usually have a champion, somebody that's really good at documenting. And I find, for example, salespeople are not that great at documenting, even like the sale, like that it happened, like, like just varies.
Yeah, but it's also because they want to move to the next one and get the next commission on the next sales cycle. So they might be good at it. It's just not something they're going to invest the time in. And that's what I find with clients. That's why we exist to begin with, is because that's what happens. It's like, do you have time to get yourself out of the day-to-day from production as a salesperson? And I've been in sales, I manage sales teams. You're going to get paid on the commission. You're not going to get paid on documenting your processes.
But so you go and sit down with all the salespeople and the people in the organization, and you kind of get it all down on paper. You get it all documented in this beautiful tool. I guess my question then is, what happens when processes change? Like, you just have to come every so often? I want to
clarify one thing that I tell my clients. If you only want me to document or ask to document, then don't bother. Don't waste your time. It has to be implemented. It's more important to implement than to document. You have to document in order to implement, but if you don't intend to implement it, it's not worth it. So we spend time documenting, but then we make sure they're followed by all. And we have a rollout process. And what you said is exactly the word that I use. We have to find an internal champion to then turn it over to, or they continue to engage with us, whatever it is. But you have to have one person that is in charge. And then we have a whole review process. So we have a process on how to revise a process. We have a process on how to review those processes. We have a process, and review can be triggered by time, meaning like, let's say every quarter, every 6 months, every year, depends on the maturity of the process that they need to be reviewed, or by an occurrence or an event. You decided to get a new software. Now we have to revise the processes.
Some people listening to this are going to say, this sounds like a lot of work. And what do I get out of this? If there's 3 people or 5 people in the business, why would I do all this and add all these rules and process on, handcuffs? Maybe they feel like they're handcuffs on them. Why would I do this?
Very good question. And I get it a lot from creative people. Mm-hmm. So honestly, what I just described is probably for a bigger organization, a little bit more mature, that they have to have it in order to scale or grow, because those listeners that are listening to that, they go like, when I get to a certain point, I can't really expand without having it because it's just chaotic. For smaller companies, if you don't have that, you're just going to basically waste so much time. The point being is that don't waste your time on documenting unnecessary processes. Ask yourself, what area of the company, if I had well-documented processes, will give me the biggest return on investment? And I'll give you an example from my own experience, okay? When I started, obviously it was just me, and I had a partner at the time, but then it was me. And I had a part-time assistant. At some point I had a part-time assistant. And I had to figure out what to delegate to her. So it forced me to write those processes. And I have a certain way of how I answered emails or how I scheduled events, but I had to document that so I can give it to that person. But then I got so many referrals and so much business, I wasn't able to handle everything myself. So then I had to document the next part, which was basically the technical documentation itself. And I was able to hire my first person who basically did the technical writing. And then it just grew from there and grew from there. But until I actually started putting some order in the company, I wasn't able to grow. I wasn't able to hire. I was just overwhelmed and I didn't have any work-life balance. So from my experience, this is why it's important.
So let's make this specific and actionable for someone. So my mom runs a painting company, and I've talked about it in the pod before, and it's really exploded. She just hired her first assistant a week ago, and she's struggling with this. And if you've never hired an employee before or someone to work with you, it's kind of difficult to know where to start. How do you train someone? And so what tips do you have, like maybe very simple, actionable tips for how to make that kind of onboarding process and then building a good process for hiring your first person?
Yeah, here's what you do. You take sticky notes and you write down all the hats you wear. Okay. I like to use Miro.com, which is a Miro board. It's basically like a whiteboard that you can put sticky notes online. If you want to do it the old way, just put your sticky notes on the desk. Fine. Take sticky notes and write all the hats that you wear. Marketing, sales, painting, HR, business development. Just write the main hats that you wear. Even if you're wearing 18 hats, just put it there and just put sticky notes in one color. Let's say green. Then take a yellow sticky note and under each one of the hats, write the main actions that you are doing. So let's say marketing. Okay, so design the newsletter or order signs, place the Facebook ads, whatever you do in marketing, you put it there. Sales. Okay, so accept the leads, qualify the leads, go do an inspection, write the bid, send the bid, follow up on the bid, close the bid, then schedule the job or pass it over to scheduling the job. Then you're the scheduler, the dispatcher. Good. How do you schedule? You just write everything. And you look at it and you look at it and you ask yourself, okay, what of these hats I can actually pass to somebody else that can wear that hat? Maybe it's not the entire hat, but maybe some of the actions under this hat. Like, where would I get the biggest return on investment? And return on investment doesn't have to be necessarily money. I mean, it will translate into money at the end, but it can be more time, more efficiency, ability to take a vacation, whatever it is, right? And then put a star next to it. So then before you know it, you will have, let's say you're doing it on your desk, you're going to have stars next to those sticky notes that you can actually get others to do. Take those sticky notes, start recording a video and basically explain how you're going to do each one of the jobs that you just said. So let's say, for instance, it is sending a proposal. Good. So show what software you are using to send a proposal. If you're using a Word document, it will be a Word document. Record yourself sending a proposal. When you hire that person, you give them that video and you have them watch it again and again. Give them a sample proposal to write. Have them write that proposal and then have them write a step-by-step on how it's being done. Right there, you have a process and you have a process that somebody already tried and are using it. And then tell that person that as things evolve, change the steps and make it more efficient. That's the simplicity of it.
So I want to highlight what I think I hear you saying. So the person, the individual, the creative person, the entrepreneur, whoever it is.
Like your mom, she should do that. Do the sticky notes. Mom, do the sticky notes.
Yeah, do the sticky notes. And then she records, you can use Loom or any of these tools. So she uses Loom to do the proposal, like you said. And maybe that proposal process takes 25 minutes, right? So it's a 25-minute video. And I think that when some people, myself included, especially my last company, it's like we hear a process and you're like, oh, I don't want to write out all these steps. But what you're saying is that the entrepreneur does not do that. They just record what they're already doing. Just do the thing that you're already doing, creating the proposal, like you said, record it. And then they offload the task of the steps to the person who has to really understand the steps. Is that right? Do you want
Absolutely.
that person to actually write the steps?
And absolutely. I mean, we do that day in and day out. That's what we do. We extract information, record it, and then we have technical writers that write it, right? We do it on a condensed, like in terms of like, we know how to extract information. So it's not necessarily 25 minutes and we condense it. But if you want to do it yourself, this is the do-it-yourself version. It works amazingly. So try that.
So outside of the actual meetings people have in their work, a lot of their work is documentation, right? Using certain SaaS software tools each day. And what I saw recently that's happening is there's this company called Klarna in Sweden. It's a big financial company, and they recently announced that they're going to replace their biggest software products, Salesforce for sales, and Workday, which is kind of a all-inclusive HR, and I think it has some documentation too. And they're going to replace them all with kind of their own AI technology. And they haven't released the code and results, but the idea is it's kind of what you said around the AI is watching the people work, say the salespeople or other people, and then instead of making them go document in this tool, go document in this tool, it becomes a little more intelligent where it learns, it prompts them, it's a more conversational piece. So I wanted to get, I guess, your thoughts on where things are going. Do you think that's an opportunity to move away from kind of documenting in this sort of more rigid format, not just processes, but your actual work, sales or HR tools where you're capturing data? And is it going to move towards more of a like chat-based AI interface where it auto documents for you kind of in the background as you do work, it kind of prompts and you have a conversation with it when you need to? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. I mean, I love AI. We're using it. I try to stay on top of it. I think that AI is as good as we use it for our benefit, as opposed to let it run our lives and say, okay, just go and do it by yourself, right? Or just do it. So it's really a matter of looking at like, how can you utilize that tool? And when we optimize, we're definitely looking at how to optimize things using AI, just like the example that you gave, right? Because how can we, if we understand the process, then we know where to plug the AI in and how the humans can actually then interact with it and create better and better products. So I'm definitely not afraid of technology. I love technology. I think it has to be definitely controlled by us and not the other way around, but definitely harness it and use it in any opportunity. I love that.
And what are some mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make when they are, kind of following this path around process? What are some common mistakes that you see?
So not organizing the documentation ahead of time in terms of like understanding what goes where, because then they end up with all these documented procedures that are just a bunch of procedures that nobody's using. Like right now we are helping a company that came to us because they tried to do it themselves and they ended up with about almost 200 different procedures here and there, and then nobody uses it because it's really hard to find. There is no why behind the procedures. It just work instructions. So you have to really put time to design. Meaning, like, let's say you did that mirror, like the board, like with the sticky notes. I know that's a simple example, but you already organize it by the different hats you are wearing, right? So each one should have their own set of procedures, and you at least organize it that way. So it's organization. It's not knowing where to stop, like writing processes. I mean, I've seen a process that was 200 page long. Too much, nobody reads it. I mean, even 2-3 pages, nobody will read it. And then too little, just cryptic things. That's definitely a mistake. Another mistake that I see is just taking a Google Doc or Word document and just typing some things there and thinking it's a process. Nobody can see it as a process. It has to have the right header, the right naming convention, etc. So it's being recognized as a process that needs to be used.
In my last business, we had a wiki, and 2 people, I guess, in the company owned it. And, they would update it here and there, but it really wasn't used much, or it fell out of date quickly. And it really kind of became a joke, I think, inside the business because people it was just out of date. And it became sort of a pet project for these 1 or 2 people. I was like, oh, there you go again with the wiki. And so how does someone prevent that from happening?
Yeah, you see, it's a very good point. But the thing is, it's the culture. And I've interviewed on my podcast several entrepreneurs that were talking about it, how they converted their business into a process-driven business as part of the culture without making it tedious, hard, or something that people don't want. So it is a matter of mindset. And I always say it starts from the top. So if it is not important for the business owner, if it's not important for the leaders, it's not going to take off. Just don't do it, because then it becomes, as you said, a joke, and it's degrading, right? I mean, why even do that? So study successful businesses. Successful businesses have processes and systems there. For a reason. What you need to do is you need to get, and that's when I go to the rollout process, that's number one slide that I show is the mindset. If the person on top, at the top of the organization, is not into it, does not buy in, and is not ready to enforce it, it's not worth doing it. So it's really shifting the mind and really everyone embracing it. And not
it's your fault, Taylor. Why were you making jokes about that wiki? It is your fault.
I know. I was the one making the jokes. That clearly was the problem.
Don't you think? I mean, if you're making the jokes, how can anybody follow it, right? I mean, that is the simplicity of it. If it is, because as I said in the beginning, that's what I tell my clients before we start working together. If it's not important to you, don't do it. Don't do it because somebody told you it's a part of a management system. Don't do it because you read it in a book. You have to really own it. You really have to believe that processes are necessary for your company. And they also have to be done correctly because, there was something probably wrong with that wiki. Maybe it was too detailed. Maybe there was no agreement. Maybe, I don't know, Taylor. I mean, you can say, it's actually a great discussion, because I'm sure the other entrepreneurs that are really looking at that, listening to us, and they go, yeah, I'm like Taylor. I hate those processes.
Flavio, did you like process? What was your?
No, we had the same issue. Well, I will say there was a time when process became. I realized what Adi is saying, and that was when we were trying to sell. I do think that is so critical because a potential buyer will look at every single piece of paper that has been signed with every customer and why and an employee and NDAs, all these things that when you're starting a company, you're kind of, I remember, just kind of using whatever template you could find online, right? You're just like, oh, come on board, don't worry, we'll figure it all out later. And you do that for enough years, and in our case, it just had accumulated a lot of this debt, if you will, right? Process debt. Wow. And so we had to, but we thought, whatever, they'll understand, right? We're a startup. It turns out
they don't understand.
They don't understand. Yeah. And in fact, for them to buy a company, it really has to be buttoned up. And so we, for example, we had our contract again, was kind of some old template. We had a lot of, loosey-goosey language in it. And that was not okay with these guys. And so we had thousands of customers. We had 4,000 or 5,000 customers. So we had to redo the contract and resend it to all those people to sign again. I mean, just can you imagine the amount of work and so, or within employees, assignment of IP is a common one, right? Somebody starts, they keep working, but then when a buyer says, who's to say that what these people worked on doesn't belong to them and it belongs to the company? Or if they leave tomorrow, do they take that piece of code with them? Did they take all these little things that, again, you don't think of, it don't really matter in the operational of the business, but they matter a lot to the people buying and putting money out to buy an asset. So every single agreement with every partner, with every reseller, all had to be kind of redone, redocumented. And that just took months and months and months of work where
there is that point of definitely having that for the selling, right? But there is the point of adjusting the processes to your culture. Writing SOPs that are very corporative for a business like yours, Taylor, is not going to work. And of course it will elicit all those reactions. It's kind of like giving you something if I tell you, okay, you now have to wear a suit and tie every time and a jacket every time you get on a Teams call or a Zoom call from your home office, you're going to go, what are you talking about, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't align. You have to do it. You can't do it robotically. You have to understand, to name with the team, why do you think documentation is important? What is the end goal? And work towards that end goal. If the end goal is selling the business and everything has to be documented, then you do it because of that. If the end goal is to onboard new employees more successfully, then that's what we are doing. If the end goal is to increase efficiency, then that is your end goal. And you measure everything against that end goal and not just documentation for the sake of documentation.
Flavia, did you change your process in later businesses because of that heartache?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it definitely, like what I just mentioned in terms of contracts and investing more earlier on in those types of things. And even in the onboarding process of new employees, that was one, again, that I think was a joke at first in the beginning. Like, I just read the wiki and that's your onboarding, or like just shadow me for a day. And yeah, I think onboarding is so now we have like a template document that each person goes through, and it's kind of tailored to that individual and what tools they need to learn. And then they have an onboarding buddy that keeps them kind of as a resource for questions. So there's this, I'm not saying we're perfect, and we're definitely like in the scale that probably Adi is at, we moved from like a 0 out of 10 to like a 2 out of 10, but it's still like progress.
Well, it's better than nothing, it's always like, where do you start and how do you use it? So absolutely.
Yeah. And I will say that I had, Flavia and I feel like had the very, very similar entrepreneurial journeys with this. I would dismiss all of these things. If you talked to me 10 years ago, I would think all this stuff is a waste of time. All this is just corporate-y. I used to call it's all MBA talk. Like, I don't have an MBA. I didn't graduate college. So I have this disdain for that. And that's the way I was 10 years ago. But you're right. When I went to sell the business, I had the same experience as Flavia, where any buyer says, okay, is this a joke? Like, you're running a joke company? You have 6 different types of contracts you have customers sign? What are you doing? Like, why doesn't this employee have an employment agreement? Why did that employee sign the employment agreement 6 months after they started? Why does this, who are your contractors? Why did you not have them sign? And okay, this is made in Word and you sent this one to and it's all like, oh, it's a startup, whatever. But you're right. Like, the buyers are like, okay, you're a joke. And what that means, and this happened to me, is that it cuts the valuation. The value of the business goes from, make up numbers, from $1 million to much less than $1 million. And that is the downside of just freewheeling, doing whatever, you find online. And that stuff can work for a while. It does work for a while. But you're right. Like, Flavia, I think same reaction. So in my current business, in the new business, I started 5 years ago, but everything from day one, extremely buttoned up, all contracts consistent, and a lot of this is due to my co-founder. He's just that way, but everything's buttoned up.
See,
like, there
Idea's
are no
right.
stories.
It is all about culture, and it starts at the top.
It's about the culture.
And it starts at the top, right? I mean, it is. But you know what? It's like, because it was, and that's the thing that we talked at the beginning. Costello, when I'm listening to you, I go like, of course you did it, because you are able to do it because of you, because of your personality and because of your drive, right? But if it wasn't for you, then somebody else cannot replicate it.
Yeah. I have one more question, and then we'll wrap with the hack. I think you give a very, very good kind of helpful something for an entrepreneur to do, being able to record the video of what they're doing. You kind of talked about the mistakes. Are there any other kind of tips that you'd have for someone who's kind of baby stepping their way into creating more structure in their business? Any other kind of tips or insights that you'd have for someone on that journey? Maybe the person that Flavia and I are talking about 10 years ago, like that person.
Well, that's exactly
what would you say to them?
If you listen to both of you, it's the lack of consistency, right? So you have to look at the lack of consistency and where there will be a risk in the business. Okay. So like, for instance, with the contractors, I trust that contractor and that subcontractor and this contract, but is it really? What if you actually, somebody will come and you don't trust them or whatnot? I mean, just look at what are the points that are the biggest risk points, and then develop a process around that.
And how could somebody learn what the risk points are? I guess they
talking to other entrepreneurs, you belong to other masterminds, other entrepreneurial organizations, you learn the hard way, because you also know, you look at things and you go, this, I'm kind of like, I'm getting by, but I know that if they don't really, and if they come back, there will be just be honest with yourself, because don't you agree, both of you, that you kind of knew that this was kind of like a little bit of a getting by. I mean, so you can either, right? I mean, you know what you're getting by. So really be honest with yourself, and then ask for help, ask for a friend, a mentor, somebody that is successful in business, just go to the tailor from 10 years ago comes to the tailor of this, find somebody like you that is 10 years later, say, hey, what did you learn? Listen to podcasts like this. I mean, that's why I do my podcast. That's why you do your podcast, is because we have those entrepreneurs that tell their story. Like today, I had a guest on my podcast that he basically lost everything. He was a millionaire, lost everything, became homeless, and then he rebuilt his wealth. But he learned, he shared his mistakes, right? So listen to other people's mistakes, listen to what they have to say, and take a look and really be honest with yourself. I mean, is your business protected? Where are the risk points?
Wait, did he lose everything because of the wiki?
He didn't know about the wiki. That's the problem.
See, he should have had a wiki.
Whoa, that's scary. Wait, what's the name of the podcast? People should know about this.
It's called the System Simplified Podcast.
Perfect.
System Simplified Podcast.
We'll link to it in the show notes too.
Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. So let's move on to the hack. What's one hack that perhaps you started using recently that might help others? Did I tell you about the Remarkable 2 tablet?
The writing tablet?
Right here.
Oh, look at that. A D has one.
Look at that.
See if a D has it.
They come up with a new one that now has colors. I want a new one.
Yeah. So I have the Remarkable 2 tablet without colors, but
So what is it?
I just used it for a meeting. It's basically a paper that's easier to take notes
of all
on.
this that I still use, but
It sounds like you use both. Wait, why do you use both paper and the tablet?
I just got it like
I just got it. Look at that.
a week and a half ago. So that's why I'm going to replace it for the one with the color. I want the one with the color. So that's
I was at a meeting in Wisconsin, and otherwise you have to take notes on your laptop or phone or a paper, and then what do you do with those? And there's to do. This makes it just a very nice way of taking notes, and it syncs, of course, with the cloud, and it's just like a clean design. It's just a beautiful thing to keep key notes in. Like I have my EO, notes in a place, or YPO notes in a place. It's just organized across kind of different settings in which you take notes. If you go to a certain conference or meetings. So I like it a lot.
That's awesome. That's
a good one. Adi, do you have a good hack for the audience?
Well, what I started doing is I went actually to an EO conference, and I met somebody there that she lives in Cape Town. And she told me that she goes, no matter what, she starts the day by going to the ocean, to the beach every day, because she lives nearby. And honestly, I also live only 9-minute drive from one of the most beautiful places. It's in West Florida. So I go, okay, you know what? No matter what, I'm going to do it. I mean, I don't know if every day, but at least 5 times a week. And it is so awesome to start a day. And sometimes if I don't manage to do it at the beginning of the day, I'll do it at the end of the day at sunset, to just walk in the water, with your feet in the water. And I like to listen to either I listen to nothing and just go. And that's where I have my most creative thoughts or creative ideas, or listen to a good audiobook or business book or podcast or whatnot. But that half an hour, it's sacred. And it just makes such a difference, because it's so easy to say, no, I need to continue working, or I have this, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything. I just come home and I have much more energy to do other things.
So the hack is to live next to the beach.
So you can make notes. Yes.
There you go.
And let's add your story to it, and then let's see what else we do.
I like it. Yeah.
Take your bike. Okay.
Take your bike. So speaking of bikes, my hack is, do you all remember when Apple Maps came out and it was a joke? It was I disparaged it. I still do.
Is it not still a joke?
So that's my hack. It's not still a joke.
Jokes.
So
what?
Yeah, I know. And when Apple Maps came out, it was so bad. It was comically bad. It would put. I remember in New York.
I used it. It took me to the wrong place.
Takes you to the wrong place, right? And it would be in Manhattan, and you're like, of all the places to get wrong, how did you send me the wrong street? It was so bad. Okay, this is the hack. It somehow, over the course of 10 years, became good. And the reason I share it as a hack is because the Apple Watch integration for the maps is unbelievable. So
the Google Maps doesn't work. They break it on purpose.
Yeah, it sucks. So you buy an Android piece of crap. So the hack is that walking and biking directions through Apple Maps, so you have to do it on Apple Maps on your phone, it pushes it to your watch in such a way that it is so good. So here's what I mean.
They have biking directions? I thought they didn't have
biking directions too. They have biking directions now. I know, it's all different. So you get, okay, so if you do walking directions in Google Maps on your watch, it sucks. It like gives you a little push notification. It's terrible. It's awful. It doesn't tell you where to turn. Same way with biking directions. Awful, terrible. The map directions does two things. One, it does really cool haptic sensing, but it's done that for a while. Like it'll tap you if you need to turn left or right. That's okay. But what's mind blowing, and this is what's changed in the last 6 months, is that you get a little bitty map on your watch. And it shows you an arrow of where you're going. So you can just glance and you're like, oh, I need to turn in 2 streets. You don't have to pull out your phone. You don't have to like squint. It's so good. And All Trails copied it. So if you use All Trails for hiking or for biking, somebody just turned on maps. If you use it for biking or hiking, All Trails also has the same integration. That's actually where I learned about it because I saw it on All Trails when I was on a hike. And I said, oh my God, this is great. Why is All Trails the leader in this? And then come to find out, Apple Maps is. So that's my hack. So my hack is try out.
Turn it on.
Look at that. You get a map. Dude, it's so good. It's so good. And you scream this from the rooftops. Like no one knows this because everybody gave up on Apple Maps, except the people not in tech. Everybody in tech gave up on Apple Maps 10 years ago. And so what my hack is, give it a try again. If you have a watch, you have to do it if you do the watch.
Yeah, because otherwise it's useless.
Just use Google.
Exactly.
Still says there's a Burger King right next to me.
This was the best part of the podcast where people learn about the Apple Maps. So that's amazing.
Go to the beach.
Use Apple Maps to go to the beach.
And use your map in order to
on a bicycle.
On a bicycle and bike.
A bicycle.
This podcast become less about business and more about time off. All right. Well, on that note, really appreciate Adi you coming on and dropping some nuggets. Really.
How can people find you?
See you.
People can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Adi Klevit. They can also find it on our website, which is bizsuccesscg.com. Yeah, either one.
Wonderful. All right. Well, appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time, hold it down, hold it down. Hey.